The wind screamed through the empty fields, carrying a chill so sharp it bit into the skin. Snow fell like a heavy blanket, smothering everything in its icy grip. Inside her little farmhouse, Martha sat by the window, staring out into the storm. The world looked frozen, silent, lifeless. But then she heard it, a sound so faint it was almost swallowed by the wind. A tiny, desperate cry. Her heart skipped. Bundling up in her thick coat and scarf, she grabbed a lantern and stepped into the blizzard. The cold stung her face, and the snow tugged at her boots, but the sound grew louder with every step. In the barn she stopped. Her breath caught. Under a pile of hay were 6 tiny puppies, shivering and crying, their little bodies trembling against the cold. "Oh, you poor babies," she whispered, her voice breaking. "How could anyone leave you out here?" Martha crouched down, her hands trembling as she brushed away the snow and hay covering the puppies. Their cries pierced the silence of the barn, tiny voices full of fear and pain. They were so small, barely bigger than her hands. Their fur was damp and matted with snow, and their tiny bodies shook uncontrollably. One of the puppies let out a weak yelp, and Martha felt tears sting her eyes. "It's okay, little ones. I've got you now," she whispered, her voice warm and steady despite the storm raging outside. She gently scooped them up, cradling their fragile bodies against her chest. The puppies snuggled closer, seeking the warmth of her touch. Martha's heart ached as she realized how vulnerable they were. Who would abandon them in weather like this? Her boots crunched against the snow as she hurried back to the farmhouse. The wind fought her every step, but she didn't care. She wasn't going to let the storm win, not when these helpless creatures were counting on her. Inside the warmth of her home, Martha quickly placed the puppies on a thick blanket by the fire. The glow of the flames danced across their tiny faces as they huddled together. She grabbed an old towel, gently drying each one, murmuring soft words of comfort. "You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you ever again." The puppies' whimpers quieted, replaced by the soft rhythm of their breathing. For the first time in years, Martha felt a spark of something she had almost forgotten: purpose. She had spent so long feeling lost and alone, but now these tiny lives depended on her. She knew she had to act quickly. They were too young to eat solid food, and she didn't have anything to feed them. Wrapping them carefully in a warm quilt, she bundled up again and headed to her neighbor Sarah's house. The puppies' lives were fragile, hanging by a thread, and Martha was determined not to let that thread break. As she stepped back out into the storm, Martha's determination grew stronger. She wasn't just saving 6 puppies. She was saving a part of herself she thought she'd lost. Martha braved the icy winds, clutching the box of puppies close to her chest. Snow stung her face as she trudged through the storm to her neighbor Sarah's house. The warmth of Sarah's small, cozy cottage was a stark contrast to the bitter cold outside. Martha stepped inside, her cheeks flushed and hands trembling, and set the box down gently on the kitchen table. Sarah gasped as she looked inside. "Oh, Martha, where did you find them?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "In the barn," Martha said, her voice shaking with a mix of exhaustion and urgency. "They were buried under the hay. They're so cold, Sarah. I don't know if I'm doing enough." Sarah nodded, already moving to her pantry. "I have some kitten milk replacer. It's not perfect, but it'll work for now," she said, pulling out a small canister. She showed Martha how to mix the formula and carefully feed it to the puppies using a tiny syringe. "You'll need to feed them every few hours, Martha," Sarah explained. "They'll need warmth too, constant warmth, but they're fighters. They wouldn't have made it this far if they weren't." Martha's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah. I don't know what I would have done without your help." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on Martha's shoulder. "You've got this, Martha. They're lucky you found them." Armed with the formula and Sarah's advice, Martha made her way back home. The storm seemed fiercer now, but her resolve burned brighter. She had a mission, a reason to fight against the cold and exhaustion. Back at the farmhouse, she prepared a warm nest for the puppies near the fire. She fed them one by one, their tiny tails wagging weakly as they eagerly suckled from the syringe. Their trust in her, so pure and complete, brought a warmth to her heart that even the roaring fire couldn't match. As she watched them fall into peaceful sleep, Martha realized she wasn't just rescuing the puppies, they were rescuing her too. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Martha's life, once quiet and lonely, now revolved around the tiny creatures who had so suddenly entered her world. She woke every few hours during the night to feed them, carefully holding each puppy in her hands as they suckled from the syringe. Despite her exhaustion, Martha found herself smiling more often. She gave each puppy a name: Scout, Patches, Buttercup, Shadow, Molly, and Rusty. Each name reflected their budding personalities. Scout was the brave one, always the first to explore. Patches, the smallest, clung to Martha for warmth. Buttercup's playful energy kept her on her toes, while Shadow's calm, observant nature provided moments of quiet joy. Molly was gentle and sweet, always sensing when Martha needed comfort. And Rusty, the mischievous troublemaker, brought laughter with his endless antics. The farmhouse, once filled with silence, now echoed with the sounds of puppyhood: playful yelps, tiny barks, and the pitter-patter of paws on wooden floors. Martha's heart, which had felt so heavy for so long, now felt full and alive. But the challenges were real. Feeding 6 puppies, cleaning up after them, and keeping them warm was no small task. The financial strain began to weigh on her as well. Trips to the feed store became more frequent, and the cost of supplies added up quickly. Yet Martha refused to let it dampen her spirits. These puppies had given her a reason to wake up in the morning, a purpose she hadn't felt in years. One evening, as the puppies tumbled over each other in a playful frenzy near the fire, Martha felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her. She realized she couldn't do it alone anymore. With a deep breath, she picked up the phone and called her daughter Emily. It had been months since they last spoke, but Martha knew she needed help. "Mom, are you sure you can handle this?" Emily asked, her voice filled with concern. "I don't just want to handle it," Martha replied. "I want to do it right." Hearing the puppy's playful yips in the background, Emily softened. "We'll be there this weekend. Let's figure it out together." Martha hung up the phone, feeling a mix of relief and determination. These little lives had brought her back to life, and she was ready to give them everything she had. The day after Martha's call with Emily, the local radio crackled with a grim weather forecast: an impending blizzard, the worst in decades. Martha's heart sank as she listened to the announcer's warnings. The biting cold and howling winds would soon envelop her small farmhouse and the tiny lives she was now responsible for. Her first thought was the puppies. Their cardboard box near the fire was cozy, but it wouldn't hold up against the brutal storm. Martha acted quickly, moving the puppies to the old laundry room off the kitchen. Though drafty, it was the warmest and safest place in the house. She reinforced the windows with heavy blankets and lined the room with old quilts and pillows to create a snug nest. Martha's next priority was preparing for the storm. She bundled herself in layers and braved the worsening weather to drive into town. The roads were icy and treacherous, and the pickup truck's tires slid dangerously on the curves. At the store, she grabbed whatever supplies she could find: puppy food, milk replacer, candles, and firewood. Shelves were nearly bare, as other residents scrambled to prepare for the storm. As the first flakes of snow began to fall, Martha hurried back to the farmhouse. She stocked the pantry, filled the woodpile, and checked the generator. By the time dust settled, the blizzard was in full force. Snow piled against the windows, and the wind rattled the house. Inside, the warmth of the wood stove and the soft breathing of the puppies provided a fragile sense of comfort. The power went out on the first night, plunging the house into darkness. Martha lit candles and fed the puppies by their flickering light. She sang lullabies and told them stories, her voice steady even as the storm raged outside. Their tiny bodies nestled against each other, radiating warmth that eased Martha's growing fear. For 3 days, the blizzard battered the farmhouse, isolating it from the outside world. The snowdrifts grew higher, almost burying the barn, and the howling wind seemed unending. Yet within the laundry room, a bond was forming, a family bound by resilience and love. Martha found strength she didn't know she had. She barely slept, feeding and comforting the puppies through the nights. Their trust in her, their tiny tails wagging even in the worst moments, kept her going. She realized she wasn't just saving them. They were saving her, giving her a reason to keep fighting. On the fourth morning, the storm finally subsided. The world outside was unrecognizable, transformed into a white, glistening expanse. Exhausted but determined, Martha emerged from the laundry room with the puppies. The worst was over, but the journey was far from complete. The storm had tested her spirit, and now she was ready to face whatever came next. As the snow began to melt under the pale winter sun, Martha stepped outside, shovel in hand, to dig a path through the deep drifts. The puppies, now stronger and more playful, frolicked around her feet, their tiny barks echoing in the crisp air. Each shoveled scoop of snow felt like a victory, a testament to the battle they had survived together. After hours of grueling effort, Martha finally cleared a narrow passage to the main road. She loaded the puppies into her truck and set out cautiously, navigating the icy roads to town. The journey was slow, but the sight of familiar buildings brought a wave of relief. At the store, Martha was greeted with warm smiles and curious questions. News of her rescue had spread, and the townsfolk admired her courage. Many offered help, food, supplies, and even donations. One young boy shyly handed her a small blanket, saying, "It's for the puppies." Martha's heart swelled with gratitude. She realized she wasn't alone in this journey. The community, moved by her story, had rallied to support her. Back at the farmhouse, Martha found a note taped to her door. It was from social services, informing her of an upcoming visit to assess her ability to care for the puppies. Anxiety surged through her. What if they didn't think she was capable? What if they took the puppies away? The caseworker, a young woman named Sarah, arrived the next day. Martha answered every question honestly, her love for the puppies evident in her words and actions. As Sarah prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. Patches, the smallest and most timid of the puppies, waddled over and placed a tiny paw on Sarah's shoe. Sarah's face softened, and she smiled. "You've done an incredible job, Mrs. Peterson," she said warmly. "These puppies are thriving because of you. I'll file a positive report and help you find loving homes for them when the time comes." Relief washed over Martha. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of hope. These little lives had survived against all odds, and now they had a chance at a brighter future. With the storm behind her and the puppies thriving, Martha turned her attention to the next challenge, finding them loving, permanent homes. She knew she couldn't keep all six. The farmhouse, though cozy, was too small, and caring for them as they grew would become overwhelming. Yet the thought of parting with them tugged at her heart. Word of the rescued puppies spread throughout the town. Families, couples, and individuals reached out, eager to adopt one of the adorable bundles of fur. Martha met each potential adopter, carefully assessing their homes and their capacity to provide the love and care the puppies deserved. These weren't just animals to her, they were family, and she wanted the best for them. The first to find a home was Scout, the bold and adventurous one. A young couple, avid hikers, fell in love with his spirited nature. They had a large yard and a lifestyle Scout would thrive in. As the couple drove away with Scout, Martha waved goodbye, her heart heavy yet happy, knowing he was heading to a life filled with excitement and love. Next was Patches, the shy and gentle pup. An elderly woman, recently widowed, visited the farmhouse and immediately bonded with him. She held Patches in her lap, her eyes filling with tears as she whispered, "You're going to be my little companion." Martha knew she had found the perfect match. One by one, the puppies were adopted. Buttercup went to a family with 3 energetic children, her playful spirit a perfect fit for their lively home. Shadow, the quiet observer, found solace with a retired professor who cherished the pup's calm demeanor. Molly, with her intuitive and gentle nature, became a companion for a teenage girl struggling with anxiety. And finally, Rusty, the mischievous troublemaker, found his match in a young boy with a love for adventure. The connection between them was instant and heartwarming. Each farewell was bittersweet. Martha felt joy knowing the puppies were going to loving homes, but their absence left a void. The farmhouse, once bustling with playful barks and tiny paws scurrying across the floor, now felt quiet and empty. She wandered through the house, noticing the small reminders of their presence. A chewed slipper here, a paw print on the rug there. Yet in her heart, Martha knew she had done the right thing. The puppies were safe, loved, and thriving. They had brought light into her life during a dark time, and now they were spreading that light to others. It was a reminder of the ripple effect of kindness and love. As the last of the puppies left with their new families, Martha stood on the farmhouse porch, watching the car disappear down the snow-dusted road. A lump formed in her throat, and she wiped a tear from her cheek. The silence in the house was deafening, and for a moment, the familiar ache of loneliness crept back in. But as she sat by the fire that evening, surrounded by memories of the puppies, a different feeling began to emerge. Gratitude. The puppies had come into her life like a whirlwind, bringing chaos, laughter, and purpose. They had reminded her of the strength and resilience she thought she had lost. The next morning, Martha woke with a renewed sense of determination. She decided to channel her energy into helping others. She reached out to the local animal shelter, offering to volunteer her time and experience. Her days became filled with caring for abandoned animals, sharing her knowledge and connecting with like-minded people. Martha also reconnected with old friends, joined a book club, and even started painting classes, activities she had long neglected. The farmhouse, once a symbol of loneliness, became a sanctuary of peace and renewal. One sunny afternoon, Martha received a surprise visit. Emily and her family arrived, bringing news of the puppies. "They're all doing wonderfully, Mom," Emily said with a smile. "Scout is exploring trails, Patches is a lap companion, and Buttercup is ruling her new home like a queen." As Emily recounted stories of the puppies' new lives, Martha's heart swelled with pride. She had given them a chance, and in return, they had given her a reason to keep going. As Emily's young daughter tugged at Martha's hand, asking if they could visit the puppies again, Martha smiled and said, "They've found new homes, sweetheart, but you're always welcome here." Looking out at the snow-covered landscape, Martha felt a sense of peace. The winter had been harsh, but it had also brought the promise of spring, a new chapter filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. As winter melted into spring, the harsh, snow-covered landscape of rural Maine was replaced by vibrant green meadows and blossoming trees. The air was filled with the sweet aroma of flowers and the cheerful chirping of birds. Martha, too, embraced the season of renewal with open arms. Her days were no longer marked by loneliness, but by purpose and connection. At the local animal shelter, she became a trusted volunteer, known for her nurturing care and wisdom. Each abandoned animal she helped reminded her of the puppies she had saved, and each success story filled her heart with pride. Martha also threw herself into her community. The book club she joined became a source of laughter and inspiration, while her painting classes awakened a long-lost creative side. She spent hours in her garden, planting seeds and watching them grow, an act that mirrored her own journey of healing and growth. The farmhouse, once a quiet and lonely place, was now filled with life and warmth. Friends stopped by for coffee, neighbors came to share stories, and the local children often visited to see her garden and hear tales of the 6 puppies who had transformed her life. One day, as she worked in her garden, Martha received a letter. It was from the families who had adopted the puppies, each sharing stories and pictures. Scout on a hiking trail, Buttercup playing in a backyard, Shadow curled up with his new owner, Molly comforting her teenage companion, Patches lounging in a cozy chair, and Rusty causing playful chaos. Each letter brought tears to Martha's eyes and a smile to her face. That evening, she sat by the fire. The letters spread out before her. She reflected on how much had changed since that snowy morning, when she first heard the desperate cries of the puppies. They had come into her life when she needed them most, and though their time together was short, they left an everlasting impact. As Martha looked out the window at the blooming garden and the setting sun, she felt a deep sense of contentment. Life had tested her, but it had also rewarded her with love, purpose, and a reminder that even in the coldest winters, there is always the promise of spring, and with spring came new beginnings. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing inspiring stories like this one. Don't forget to leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts or similar stories you've experienced. And as always, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that will move you. See you in the next video.